some extraordinary guests. They all hate each other's guts. No, they just you know, they all just slightly disagree. But we're going to use the model of liberalism and be tolerant towards different perspectives here. But you will hear different perspectives. Moderating the panel is my good friend Jeff Deist, president of the Mises Institute. Nickolas Wildstar, whom I just met, and I regret that I'm not a Californian, so I can vote for him. He's running for governor of California.
Woo!
And, or actually, you probably dread the idea of being governor of California. It's just like, yeah, I'm going to become governor and just say, do whatever you want.
Exactly.
Robert Griffiths, who I think is, who is going to be advocating, I think, for the crypto position, as is David Barker of the famous and highly controversial Bitcoin Not Bombs, because a lot of people prefer bombs to Bitcoin. And Alma Sommer, is she here? She is there. Oh wait. Yes, of the famous Jackrabbit Freedom Festival. And because it looks like I'm going to be there because you're drafting me in a strangely persuasive way. So let's defer to these amazing people so we can figure out what we're supposed to be doing with our lives. Here's the panel and my friend Jeff Deist.
Thank you. This seems to be the perennial question: what to do, what to do, what to do. The number one knock on libertarians is that we're all theory, no action, and that instead of 900-page books, we need a little more street-level action, or at least voting-level action. So with that said, why don't we open it up to Nickolas and talk about why you chose to run for governor?
Absolutely. Well, exactly that. Working as a grassroots activist, I'm actually a reformed Occupy Wall Street activist. I was very involved in the anonymous movement around 2008 and just wanted to get more involved politically. That involvement in those community activism wanted and encouraged me to get involved into political activism. I mean, whether it's something that we're protesting over homelessness or criminal justice reform, it all boils down to policy change. So just seeing those differences amongst my peers and the protesters that were there, my encouragement to them was, hey, why don't we get involved in office? If we all ran for office and were to actually win, we'd be put in position to make those policy changes. And I was inspired to do so myself by being involved in the 2012 presidential campaign of Dr. Ron Paul. I was a Democrat up until then, and pretty much just saw the Republican Party as being a whole bunch of old racist white guys, and never even considered voting Republican. But after being disappointed by the performance of Barack Obama during his first presidency, I was immediately looking for an alternative. And that's when I stumbled across Dr. Ron Paul, and hearing him speak about libertarianism, ending the federal government, ending occupational wars, ending government's involvement in our personal lives just resonated with me more. That was what I was hoping Barack Obama would have done during his presidency, which he failed to do. So at which point I then shifted and started to become a Ron Paul supporter and voted for him in 2012 and heard one of his speeches where he proposed a call to action and said, if you're hearing this message of liberty and are engaged into it and are excited by it, get involved politically, run for office, whatever office it may be. If it's city council, whether it's Senate or mayor or governor, just run as a libertarian and do your best to represent the liberty movement. So I ran for governor in 2014 as an independent candidate and am now running as a libertarian candidate. I just won the party's endorsement this past weekend, so I'm the official nominee for the Libertarian Party of California. And of course, I would love for you all to find out more about me and support my my goal to bring back liberty to the state of California.
Now, does the change in the California rules where we now have a top two primary, and the primary itself is in June, I believe? Is that correct? So Did it make it less attractive to you that you might not be able to be on the ballot in November if you don't crack the top two in the primary? Does the new primary rules make it less attractive for third parties to run in the state?
No, not at all. If anything, I think it's even more encouraging because it gives us an opportunity to kind of thread the needle, so to speak. With this primary election, with it also being a midterm election, it's very likely that we're going to have an extremely low voter turnout, maybe 1 million to 2 million people at the primary election alone, not the general election in November. So in the primaries, both the Democrats and Republicans are hoping to get one of their candidates in. Well, the Democrats have about 11 candidates running for office and the Republicans have about 8. So if we get a small group of voters turn out at the polls, majority are no party preference, it's a possibility that they may be swayed to turn away from the old party establishment and be excited to vote Libertarian. That's what I'm hoping to do, is encourage the people of California to vote different. You've seen what the Democrats have done to this state for 2-3 terms now, since Jerry Brown has been in charge, and the Republicans with Arnold Schwarzenegger, etc. So it would behoove the people of California that if they want less taxes, less regulation, more freedom, more liberties, more respect for their constitutional rights, instead of having them continue to be threatened by the establishment here, to do something different politically. So the Democrats are banking on hopefully getting their members energized to be there at the polls, but the Libertarians are very adamant in showing up as well. In the last presidential election, there was over 70% of the 250,000 registered Libertarians that showed up to vote in the presidential election. So if we can get those same amount of voters to show up at the polls, still enough people that want to get away from the Democrats and Republicans and get those no party preference voters to vote Libertarian, then hey, we can walk into that November election just off of 500,000 votes, 250,000 votes. It's that possible. So the best thing for us to do is to more so focus on winning. It seems like the more, the people that have been most doubtful in my goal to get into office or to move the Libertarian Party of California further here, is that they don't believe that we can win. And that's where we need to turn our attention to, is actually believing in winning. Why run our candidates? Why run for governor or mayor or for president even? Why support our candidates if we don't think they can win? We need to start knowing that we can win and let people know that you're going to be wasting your vote on whoever loses the election, okay? Republican or Democrat or whatever. They're going to spend tens of millions of dollars on those elections, and when they lose, we the people lose. So make sure that we start voting more consciously and start supporting those candidates that would actually represent what we value.
Can I ask you a question?
Oh, please do.
Have you heard the term herding cats?
Yes, and it's extremely difficult.
Like right now, there's probably more than 200 people at this conference, and we have 20 people sitting in the chairs. So, I mean, that's just a perfect example in itself for even trying to get people that are already awake to even go vote on voting day. It's just, to me, if we are going to change anything at all, we're going to do it without permission and without politics, because in my view, poly, meaning many, ticks, meaning blood-sucking creatures. That's how I view politics, exactly. For the last 8 years, and I woke up with Ron Paul too, I've been working for myself. I designed cell towers for 7 years before I quit my slave job, and I have never gone back. I've not paid taxes in 8 years, I suppose, maybe 5, I guess. Maybe it was the last time I filed. I'll never file again. In fact, I'm working on a tour right now called Escape the Livestock Management Program. You like that? No? Did it resonate? No claps? Should we talk more about voting? So anyway, I've been working for myself, and I think that if we are going to change anything, we're going to do it by example. I understand that there's like people working in the system, people working to change it from outside the system. I had a conversation with Ron Paul recently to let him know I have 2 undocumented human children. They don't have any government forms. They have no permission slips. And we just traveled to Mexico and back, and we got back, okay? So they let us back in, even though they have no government forms. We even flew on a plane in Mexico, no passports for our children. This is how you change things, without permission, because if we continue asking permission, when the culture is already there, they're already awake, it's just gonna take that much longer through legislation for laws to change. So I say we do away with the Federal Reserve, fiat currency, use crypto only, and work for ourselves with non-governmental organizations.
Woo! Woo! So apparently you and I have a very similar background. So congratulations on the nomination, first off. But I started with Ron Paul this time in 2008. I was involved in the Ron Paul 2008 campaign, and then some of the Tea Party stuff after that. But I was also an Occupy activist in Oakland and San Francisco, and so like I got into that kind of like direct action, like just embed yourself in your own community and do your own thing in public space. And I really appreciated that approach to things. But ironically for me, I was coming out of political activism by the time I got to Occupy. Like I had campaigned for Ron Paul in 2008. By 2012, I was kind of like, it seemed like a zero-sum game to be involved in politics. And so for me, the thing that solidified for me, I guess I have both both a virtue and a vice to political activism, right? So one is, you said you wasted your votes if you vote for anybody that loses. So there's a problem with political activism that is that it's a zero-sum game. That you put forward all of this effort, and if you don't win, nothing comes of it, right? It's like all of that effort was wasted, which means that in hindsight, all of that effort would have been better served in direct action, which you would benefit from, even if you didn't have a majority, right? So the way that I sort of saw it after 2008 and then through 2012 and then on for the rest of my life was, I was looking for avenues in which I could make change in my own sphere of influence. Right, that way I'm not competing with my political rival, and we're not canceling each other out. It's like all of my effort goes toward something that I can make at least a meaningful change with, and it's not thrown away if I don't get the votes that I asked for. And so this is, I guess, just advice for you, because you're going to run for office. I'm not going to try to talk you out of it, but in my experience with the Ron Paul campaign, with both 2008 and 2012, is that there's a way of winning and there's a way of losing. And the people that campaigned for Ron Paul, even though they didn't think he was going to win, they actually still won because they went into it with a different goal than getting elected. They went into it with the goal of educating people and using the platform to educate people. And in that sense, they did succeed. But also in that sense, they didn't require the political platform to do that. There are lots of venues in which you can educate a person from a podium or a stage or a podcast or a YouTube channel that don't require the zero-sum game of also trying to acquire votes and potentially wasting all of that effort. If that makes sense. Yeah.
I actually agree with you, and all three of us have something in common. We were all awakened by Dr. Ron Paul's campaign for president. And that
For liberty. It was a campaign for liberty.
Exactly. And you're absolutely right. We do definitely need to be educators in what we're doing. I'm hoping, if anything, my campaign is an educational tool in itself to inspire other people that, like me, in seeing Dr. Ron Paul, get encouraged to make that change, that direct action politically. Because as much as we talk about going out there and protesting and getting involved in trying to change these narratives directly with our protesting, it's not changing it for everyone. And that's what I saw myself. We were out there protesting with our signs and our megaphones and marching around, but at the end of the day, we go home, our feet hurt, our arms hurt, we lost our voice, you gotta go to work the next day, our slave job, pay the bills. It's the same old rigmarole. It's the cycle that repeats itself. And the mass is stuck on that. How can we change it for the whole? It's going to take a small few of us, and it's basically applying the Pareto principle. We get 20% of us in office, we'll be able to make 80% of a change for the whole. So, and that's what we're hoping to do as political activists, is be able to break in there somehow, whatever level it may be, whether it be, city council or governor or president. Just get in there, one of us, to at least be able to change it for the whole. And I'm actually an anarcho-libertarian, so it's unfair for me to say, you know, because I'm going to agree with you guys on a lot of things, but as a libertarian, that's what makes it running on the platform. Is the goal is to minimize government, so much so that it's barely existent. And people need to be shown that they can experience freedom in baby steps, little by little. So that's why I'm saying one of the first things as a libertarian is, as governor, I would like to eliminate the income tax. Here in the state of California, it's 13%, you know? States like Florida, Texas, large states in the union have zero income tax. I would like for California to follow suit. The majority of the income tax goes towards paying state representatives' salaries, including the governor, who gets paid nearly $200,000. We have thousands of employees, state employees, we pay with our tax dollars, getting paid 6-figure, 8-figure salaries. The UCLA head football coach gets paid $3.5 million a year. The hell, why? That isn't going to the teachers, teaching our 3rd grade students, which on average can't even read. So we're pretty much, we've made this system to where we're all supposed to jump in and get involved with it somehow, and it makes it difficult for people to jump off the grid without paper. Even myself, I'm against licensure. So I don't want a driver's license because I want to be able to exercise my right to travel freely without having to present documentation to do so. But every time, I'm a black man. Every time I get stopped by the cops, guess what they ask me? Where's your ID? And if I say no, I'm in a handful of trouble. I got videos on YouTube of me doing exactly this. Trust me, watch. It's a big difference. So
I think that, like, I watched the seasteading, Joe Quirk talk about the Seasteading Institute earlier, and the special economic zones that are already being created all over the world. They're having such a huge impact that the U.S. is literally being left behind. And so to change something from the inside at a super slow pace, when everywhere else in the world is like blowing up, I don't know, it's like, do you make the decision to like stay here and fight and try and change the old ways? Or do you move to a seastead in a special economic zone that is already tax-free, have your business, have your kids, raise them, it moves all over the place, you can be nomadic. You know, these old ideas and then changing them from the inside seem like they're gonna take the next 30 years of my life away, and I'm not for that. Like, I go to that Seasteading Institute talk and I go, I'm gonna create seasteads without permission. I'm not even waiting on somebody else to like build it or grow it or whatever. Like, I'm gonna find a group of people who want to travel the world and go in the same areas as we want to go, and they're going to travel with us. And whether we're in Puerto Rico or we're in, you know, St. Kitts or we're in the Caribbean or we come to Florida occasionally, like, we're going to do it all without permission, because I'm just done asking. It takes too much of our life away, and we just have our children and then we pay taxes and then we claim them just so we can get a little bit more of our money back. It's fucking bullshit. And we all have to quit right now. If you have a slave job, quit it. There's food banks. You do not need to be on government welfare to access a food bank. You will not starve if you are afraid of quitting your job, or your family will starve. Join the Liberty community. Somebody will house you or help you or build you a home on their 10 acres of whatever that they've already bought in the middle of nowhere, desert of no land, whatever. So what, you gotta haul water, get some solar panels? Like, seriously? Seriously. Baby boomerism is literally a disease. It has to end. It cannot be given to the next generation. It can't. We have to end it right now.
I couldn't agree with you more. And believe it or not, that's the goal of my campaign. As I'm letting people know, in 4 years, I will be able to make those differences. I want to be able to transition us from being a service-based economy to being a resource-based economy. We have tons of money. California just went from the 6th largest economy in the world to the 5th, okay? The reason being, that wasn't because of government. That had nothing to do with it. It had everything to do with it. Government takes more of our money than it uses.
Right, but that's why the economy, that's why
the economy boomed. It's GDP based off of the technology boom.
You're saying went up.
Exactly.
It got better. California
went up.
Itself great again.
Exactly. We got upgraded. We got upgraded because the technology sector and the entertainment sector and Thankfully, our agricultural sector has been increasing slowly but surely. If government got out of the way, imagine what would happen then.
Sure. I got a governor question.
Yes, please.
This is kind of the only thing that matters to me about I mean, I'm from California, but I don't live here anymore. But I keep seeing...
We'll get you to come back.